just a little bit too small. This here's it's a wild grape. We'll have to we'll come back to that deer a little bit later. So this is going to be my experience bow hunting this year. Originally I uploaded this without very much commentary, but I figured I'd voice over a little bit just so you could understand my perspective as far as bow hunting goes. As you can presume, bow hunting is not really the way to go if you want to try to live off the land. But I don't bow hunt to try to live off the land. I extend my bow hunting season, or my hunting season rather, by bow hunting. Gives me a chance to try to get close to animals. Big game animals like deer. Never really gets old to try to get close to them. This is a little mock scrape I set up just below the tree stand. So as you can probably imagine, I spend a lot of time relaxing, just listening and watching.
Hunting, deer hunting. We brought our dinner here.
So I had a chance to bring my son out a couple times to just sit in the ground blind, and hopefully things showed up, but I didn't manage to see anything. We got really close to some squirrels, which was fun. He was impressed that they didn't know where we were and they were hidden. Every year I set my tree stand up, brush it in a little bit more. In this particular area, the deer like to spot me. So a few cedars that the landowner lets me cut. I drag them up and brush myself in. I make those homemade ladders. Just to make it easier to get up to the top. This is a vantage point from the deer. As you can see how I'm silhouetted a little bit with the backdrop of the opening in the swamp on the backside. And the deer will usually pick me off. So anyway, my plan, I've tried to figure out a couple different ways, like put some attractant out in the field, get them curious to come out there. But the thing that worked, like I said, the most is when I'd go out in this field here and walk really, really slowly, and they'd still know I was here. Like, they're smart does. They know I'm here. But because I brushed this in, which was the main secret, is when they came out in that field, they couldn't see me anymore. So they're the kind of does that they know you're there, and they don't care too much about that. So, but they want to know is where you are. So you can see here, this is the opening. And now, because I'm tucked up against this tree, they can't see me here. So here's the finished product. This is an owl. Decided to land right next to me. Didn't know I was there. Here's a pile of turkeys. There's about 13 in total. The landowner's been asking me to come out and hunt them, so I might do that this spring. This is what we call magic hour. Just when the sun hits the top of the trees, the deer can start moving just about at any time. Shot many deer from this tree stand. Here's a view of what I'm looking at. It's pretty filled in. There are quite a few shooting lanes also.
What are you eating? Apple pie. What's that?
bushcrafted fork. I didn't prompt him to say that. So he's picking up on some of the things I'm saying in the house. So good memories to look back on this. Have as a keepsake. I did lots of this season. Just hang back and listen. You hear a donkey in the background. There's another stand that I only hit once or twice a year. One of trees fell down in my shooting lane, totally blocking it off, so you don't have any choice but to clear it. If I get to my stand early enough, I don't concern myself too much with making a bunch of noise. Deer pretty much have short memories. Sometimes it attracts them to come into your stand and have a look at what's going on. If you can evade their sense of smell, you can usually get a shot. Now, as far as wilderness living goes, one deer will last about a month for one person, so a deer goes a long way, but it's not everything as far as what you need for living in the wild. Here's the view from the same stand that I just had cleared out that lane. And then a couple turkeys show up. That cold, damp rain. Not fun. There's a couple more turkeys. This is an interesting encounter with the turkeys. There's a flock of them. Like I said, there was about 13 in this flock. And when they all started funneling in, I knew I was in for a little bit of trouble, but also an interesting encounter. Because up until this point, I hadn't seen any deer yet. So seeing any kind of wildlife is a bonus, especially up close. So I did a good job just to be quiet, just to see what these turkeys would do. You can see they're a little bit nervous. They know something's up. They can kind of see me a little bit. And I am trying to film them, so I'm moving around a little bit, but they settle down. And if you heard that, there was a turkey flying up to roost. There's another one just up a couple branches. There's another one going up. If you listen closely, you might be able to hear one fly right by the camera. In fact, it came about 2 or 3 feet away from the camera and almost flew right into me. So just listen for the fly-ups. They're heading up to roost. And these ones have a vantage point on me, so they're trying to check me out, see what I am. You can hear the clucking now. It's an alarm call the turkeys make when they know something's not right. Well, the clucking will increase in intensity. See those leaves drop? They landed right on my tree, right above me. So I'm just unscrewing the camera so I can show you. That one's right in my tree, right above me. And then just moving the camera around, they picked up on that. Now, but they're roosted, so they can't. They have to decide if they're gonna stay put. So they're deciding amongst themselves if I'm a threat. That one didn't like being in the same tree as me. That's that nervous clucking. That's not a good sound when you're hunting them, because they know something's not right, something's amiss. Of course, you don't really want this while you're deer hunting either. When you're stuck up in the tree, there's only so much you can do, and really just hang tight and enjoy it. Didn't really frustrate me all that much. That was kind of more interesting than frustrating, just to be in the tree with a bunch of roosted turkeys. It doesn't happen too often. That one decides it's too close, so it doesn't want to be near me anymore. Wild turkeys were reintroduced to Ontario not too long ago. They had been completely wiped out, extirpated, and then reintroduced from the United States. And now they've been growing in number steadily every year. We have a huntable population. Around my neighborhood, they're not super abundant, but they're becoming more so every year. They have really great eyesight. They have a very poor sense of smell, but they can see really well. So any kind of movement or color, they key on. They also have excellent hearing. This is my 10th hunt without seeing any deer.
That's the length of the ladder. Slightly longer than 15 feet. Can you tilt my way? Back a bit.
So my brother had acquired some new property partway through the hunting season. I did some scouting and set up over this little opening.
Go flatten her rack out again.
It's my dad giving me some ribs. My brother giving me a hand here.
Beautiful. Where are you?
She threw up a homemade tree stand in this stand that I made out of old barbecue parts, cut up and bolted together.
Okay. Yep. You want this on the other side? Yeah.
It's pretty heavy, but it's a semi-permanent stand that I won't move too much. So this is just pressure-treated ladder. And you can see the construction of the tree stand here. All old barbecue parts, cheap barbecue parts. You show how I lift the tree stand up and make it easy on myself. Use a tree step, just hook it over, and then from there I'll use the ratchets. And this is my brother's property, doing some scouting with trail camera. I'm just checking here for any fresh tracks. Wondering if I caught anything on camera. Those tracks tell a story. This stand was interesting. I'd always hear footfall, but never know what the culprit was. And then at dusk, a grouse would come in and roost nearby. And grouse don't have a heavy footfall, but they do sound an awful lot like deer. They pause. So here I'm walking out and getting ready for the grouse to flush. They startle me every time. Kind of lost track of how many tree stands I have. At least 10, between 10 and 15 stands. So this was the first deer I had seen. Just a small buck, one antler, but it goes right under my tree stand. Would have been a really easy deer to take, but just wasn't on my list this year. Too small. This season we were only allowed to take one deer, and it had to be a buck. Here's the same buck on trail camera. I set up this mock scrape also. You can see he's coming to check out what's going on. This is him walking toward my tree stand through that trail there, through the swamp just on the other side is where I have my tree stand set up. But we only had one tag this year, dropped down from multiple tags in season past. And so to keep the season going, I was looking for a buck. See again, magic hour with the sun just hitting the top of the trees. I hunt mostly evenings. Sometimes I'll hunt in the morning, but I found I've had more luck hunting evenings and get to sleep in, so what's the difference? This is one of my favorite stands again. I take multiple deer from this stand, or have taken multiple deer from the stand. One thing about this stand though is deer like to bed in the swamp, and sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not, so I don't always see them. And the farmer hasn't planted much in his field this year, just in adjacent fields, and the deer of course will follow that around. You know, by 15 hunts out, after only seeing one deer, things start to drag on. But if nothing else, I'm persistent. So these deer were probably bedded nearby. As I say, they sometimes bed here, they sometimes don't. But when they hear me come in, if they do bed where I don't like them to, they'll pick up on the sound, and then they're often quite attracted to that, and then they want to come in and see what's going on. My fault, though, is not clearing shooting lanes up on the hill. Something I'll probably do next season. These deer are easily within 20-yard shooting range, but nothing clear enough, and I wasn't really prepared to shoot a doe anyway, as I said. See, this deer's trying to make its way perfectly downwind to confirm what it is I am. There's actually another doe trailing her. There she is. She's a lot less wary, so probably young of the year. Maybe her offspring, not paying too much attention, more feeding than anything. You'll see the results of hanging out with the doe. As the other one makes it around to the backside, downwind. This one more or less oblivious, but still slightly aware that something's amiss. So this doe has winded me. That pretty much ends a hunt. 90% of the time, if that happens, I won't see any more deer. I'm lucky to see 1 or 2 deer on average every time I go out. This year's been, I've seen saw maybe 4 deer out of all the times that I went out this year. So I really had to be patient. And this was the same experience for a lot of people who hunt near me. Just not a super abundant area. It's fun to watch. It's fun to go out the whole season and watch things change. So just showing that most of the deer are nocturnal. So here's me leaving, and then same night, a couple deer stroll through. I usually spend about 2 or 3 hours in the tree stand every time I go out. So you can imagine it's quite a time-consuming process to get a deer to cooperate enough that you can take it. Might make a good buck in a couple years, really short tines. I'm always curious about the trail camera, having a sniff, seeing what's up. And doe comes in, check things out. The does track and pay attention to the bucks as much as anything. And also pay attention to the trail camera. See them sniffing nearby. This one probably got a sniff of the camera, the strap, and smelled human odor, so that set her off, startled her. You caught that, but the buck just made a little grunt. So I find once the leaves all drop from the trees, my chances of sighting a deer drop even more. Obviously, maybe not so obviously, but I'm freshening up this scrape, this mock scrape I've made with a little bit of human urine. People think maybe that won't work, but not long after, we get a buck come in and work the licking branch up above. And there was no scrape here before. I actually made this scrape myself, which is clearing the leaves with a stick and peeing in it every once in a while. So this buck comes in and checks things out. And then another deer comes in and checks it out too. It's interesting, when the deer tilts his head back like that, she's taking scent in really deep. She's really trying to figure out what the smell is. So if you're standing nearby and the deer starts tilting her head back, or his head back, you know that they're onto you, and it's just a matter of time before they pinpoint your exact location. Oh, this kind of gets the heart racing. It's that sound to the leaves. You start to think, maybe there's a deer coming in. Need to get ready. And as I mentioned before about this stand, it's a grouse that likes to come in and torment me, make me think that I might actually get a deer in range. And I thought about shooting this grouse a few times. If I could line things up, I might have, just to get something out of the hunt. Now, after 20 hunts, you can imagine I'm getting pretty discouraged. Here's that grouse again, just walking through my other mock scrape. Just didn't have the bow ready in time. Grouse around here are pretty skittish. I don't normally hunt them because they usually flush 30 or 40 yards out before you even have a chance to see them. Oh, this one tended to walk by almost every hunt. And listen to some coyote. Pack of coyote must have got onto something. There's what a coyote looks like. Now we're changing from rain to snow. A bit of a dusting out there. Now it's do or die. Now I move to shoot whatever. I start to get a lot less picky. It starts to get really cold and hard to set, especially without seeing anything. I start bundle up, layer up. See, all the grass is all matted now. The cover is all down, so the deer really start feeling safe moving around. Woodlots are small, spaced out by agricultural fields. The amount of cover is quite limited. So, not a very exciting season for me as far as deer goes, but that's not a lack of trying. I did go out over 20 times, and just the deer population's down this year, not producing very much, so I was a little bit hesitant putting this video out, but I thought, heck, you might learn something. As far as getting a deer and counting on it or getting big game, it's really not something you can count on. So this is about sums up my season. Long, drawn out, not very exciting. Then we have some deer moving through to their wintering areas, and I have about thrown in the towel at this point. Anyway, hopefully this next season brings more opportunity and I get to actually shoot something on film, which was my goal for the year.